He supported Mayor Sobchak, but he was also organizing this incredible network of former KGB, foreign economic interests, and local interests.
In the 1990s, St. Petersburg was known for organized crime and corruption. State institutions were partnering with criminal organizations to rip off as much as they could, as fast as they could.
Putin was a pretty good fixer. He could make stuff happen. He knew how to work the system.
Mr. Putin was able, as deputy mayor, to be the focal point of all of these different networks as they came together.
He was made FSB director.
The FSB is responsible for internal spying. These are the guys who have the most funding, the most resources.
He learned, which served him in good stead, how to maneuver politically.
Направленные вами для командировку для работы под прикрытием правительства на первом этапе.
That became his primary goal of power. The FSB was simply a ladder.
Almost immediately after the breakup of the Soviet Union, these oligarchs were able to take over state-owned enterprises at bargain basement prices, turn some of these individuals into multimillionaires or even billionaires almost overnight.
Under Yeltsin, the oligarchs became very powerful and very independent, and the power of the state was crumbling.
At the end of the Yeltsin years, he obtained almost sort of a buffoonish type of personality, a drunk, a little bit out of control.
Yeltsin was nervous, and he chose to go with the guy that he thought would protect his family and their assets. That's, I think, the sole purpose why Putin was selected to then run for president.
Followed by the bombings of the apartment houses.
There were a series of terrorist attacks in 1999.
They found evidence of the FSB having been there and set that all up.
I know what has been alleged. I find the evidence compelling. And I know those terrorist attacks helped Vladimir Putin win the election. I'm not ready to believe yet, and maybe that's just my idealism getting in the way of my analytic side, that the Russian government would kill its own civilians to elect Putin president.
The apartment bombings were KGB operations using a type of explosive that was only made in a KGB facility.
Oh, sure. It was very clever, and the Russian people began to look for a leader. It's not the first time in history. You could compare it to some degree to the 1930s and the rise of Adolf Hitler.
Дорогие друзья, до наступления 2000 года все доброе и все хорошее, счастье, и поднимем бокалы.
With respect to democracy, I think he was pretty clear from the very get-go. He feared independent actors.
Президента Российской Федерации.
Putin started forcing the independent media to knuckle under, putting in state control, turning it into propaganda outfits.
The West is not monitoring.
Started arresting people who had different points of view.
Then he starts going after independent journalists. They start ending up dead, assassinated.
The most prominent journalist in Russia, Anna Politkovskaya, was murdered on Putin's birthday.
Putin brought the oligarchs to heel.
Почему здесь-то забегали все как тараканы перед самым моим? Подписали этот договор? Да. Олег Владимирович подписал? Что я не вижу вашего? Идите-ка.
A number of them were forced to leave the country. Some were killed in mysterious fashions. Those who remained are basically lapdogs of his.
Кто не согласен с этой позицией, знаете, как раньше говорили, иных уж нет, а те далече.
Putin was letting everyone know that this period of everybody getting to do their own thing was very much over.
And then he dropped his most trusted friends and confidants from the intelligence services into the key positions controlling all those businesses.
Vladimir Putin and his oligarchs use money essentially stolen from the Russian people.
If you're one of these big kleptocrats, getting your stolen proceeds into a rule of law system is one of your highest priorities.
Once that money is laundered, they have access to Western banks and they can do whatever they want.
Semyon Mogilevich was the first big organized crime figure in Russia who figured out how to launder massive amounts out of Russia and the former Soviet Union.
Semyon Mogilevich is worth about $10 billion, according to FBI reports. He's considered the money laundering genius. He's sometimes called the brainy Don because he has an economics degree.
The most important of the Russian crime bosses, a man who was for years on the 10 most wanted list in the United States.
He still lives happily in Moscow today.
In Russia, he still gets the VIP treatment and is rarely without a bodyguard who chauffeurs him in his £200,000 armor-plated bomb-proof limousine.
Why did you set up companies in the Channel Islands?
The problem was that I didn't know any other islands. When they taught us geography at school, I was sick that day.
The Russian mafia is an adjunct of the Russian government.
I've described it as going from organized crime under the Soviets to disorganized crime under Yeltsin to organized crime again under Putin.
Those networks recycle back to Mr. Putin's inner circle, and they continue to help maintain Mr. Putin's power.
To the point where today, Putin may well be the wealthiest man on the face of the planet.
How does Russia launder money into America?
Everything I know that's interesting, I can't tell you. Now, let me try to think of a way to go at 30,000 feet. Yeah, I know where you're going with this, because I know we're going to talk about Trump in a few minutes.